I'm very pleased to be talking with Neil McCarthy today, the author of An Inspiring Recovery. We just are launching it today, so I'm pleased to talk with you, Neil. How are you?
Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Here is the book. It's official.
It's
It's
official.
out on Amazon. So very, very excited about this. And it's been great to work with Liz and looking forward to getting it out there.
Yeah. Uh, so I'd like to talk with you about some of the themes in the book. So in the book, we talk about mental health challenges. I know that you had a break from reality while you were in college studying engineering, and it really altered the course of your life. What was it like to write about this? What was that like for you?
Well, at first it was more of a therapeutic kind of process. I was going, through therapy with counselors and
Hmm.
people like that, doctors,
Hmm.
and it was just sort of like a release of energy to get it out there, and then just to release what was going on internally.
Hmm.
And then it just sort of like evolved from there. And then I
Hmm.
sort of came to a point where, oh, this is something that could be interesting for people to read. And I was also thinking, well, maybe, you know, I could transition this sort of into some sort of new career that's still, really, really vague and poorly defined at this point. But I still don't know where that's going. But it's been a journey, and the biggest part of the journey has been the stuff that's happened in the background, like just starting with a diagnosis 30 years ago, I think it was, and
Mm.
moving through to here, and writing the book has probably been a lot easier than the journey has for those past
Mm.
years. So
Mm. And throughout the course of the book, you talk about getting different diagnoses, having different doctors, trying different treatments, all these different things. Any thoughts that you have to share with people that might be facing a diagnosis or facing mental health challenges and it's a new thing for them, right? They're just getting hit with this.
right. So the book is intended a lot for people who are starting their journeys on this, or maybe people who are stuck in their journeys and they need an extra sort of inspiration or hope that things can. I mean, it's not going to be all good and rosy at the end of it, but there is a lot of hope here that people can progress on their journeys and get to a place of a rewarding, fulfilling life. It's never going to be perfect, but there is hope out there, and there is good treatment, and I always say, leave no stone unturned when people go into these things, and I always say, if something works and it doesn't hurt you, then go for it.
Mhm.
I put a lot of different options in the book that people can look into for their own recovery. And there's a lot of help out there that's available, and I encourage readers to take advantage of it.
Mhm. One thing you talk a lot about is the impact of creativity
Hmm.
and music and writing
Yeah,
in your life and in your healing process. Could you share a little bit about that?
sure. Yeah, my first love was music, and I played the saxophone for many years, and I was in the jazz band in college and in high school, and then my saxophone followed me through many moves, and even
Mm.
though I didn't play it because I was sick for a long time, it still came with me everywhere I moved, and I moved around quite a bit. Um, but it was always there in the background when I needed it, and then I would come back to it. And actually, I had joined a band here in Connecticut. I think it was 2011, and we were together for about 4 or 5 years. And I
Mm.
played with them, and I played gigs, and it was a great time, and it was just like a great release to channel my emotions outward, and having an instrument to do that made musicians will say like their instrument is sort of an extension of themselves, and I've felt that to be true many times in my life, that it was
Mm.
sort of a channel to get feelings out there and connect with other people, and also an emotional release for me.
Hmm.
And then, the writing has been more recently, I would say. I hadn't been an avid writer until I really started to put this memoir together. Although I did do a lot of writing in college for technical writing. It wasn't storytelling or book writing, but I did do a good bit of technical writing. I was very, very good with that. So I did have some history with that practice. And my dad was an English teacher, so I have a lot of teaching on that. So he taught me a lot about writing, and so that's how that part of the process started.
You said something that was very interesting to me about how your health was different when you started writing. When did you say it was 2019? I think it was. You started writing the book then, around then,
Yeah, it's
and
around
and
that
then till
time.
now. What changed with your health between those times as you were writing?
Well, yeah, so there were a lot of different factors that affected my health during that time. I had changed providers, I had changed medication a couple times. So there's like a lot of other influences that factor into those changes. But having the process of the book writing, accompany all that, was a uh, great benefit because I could sort of like see how the process was moving. I could
Mm,
see where my thoughts were going and my ideas, and it could help me process anything that was going on. So if I was having, a medication change or something like that, I could, you know, I guess I sort of call it like seeing or looking at what's
mm.
going on with that. Um, and so the writing helps put that in perspective, and definitely like I'm a lot more healthy now than I was when I started writing the book,
Mm,
although there's no real way to measure it quantitatively. It just feels a
hmm.
lot better.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We wanted to feel better.
Yeah.
And you talk about also meditation practices and things like that and how that's impacted you. What's that been like for you?
So meditation has been like a great benefit for me as well. I started that probably right around the time my daughter was born in 2013. I was uh, I was still having trouble with illness, and I was really concerned about my ability to take care of family and take care of
Hmm.
my health and take care of my job, and it was just a lot going on. And I finally sat down and said, I need to have something else that I can do on my own that'll help me
Hmm.
process all these things that are going on. Um, and so meditation, in the same way that writing helps me look at myself, the meditation shows me who I am and what's going on with my treatment. And when I have a medication change or a therapist change, it helps put those in perspective and just sort of say, hey, this is what's going on right now. This is impermanent, as we like to say, and we will, or I will, move through this. And also, some of the meditation practices talk a lot about just finding peace or happiness in the present moment without
Mm,
looking too far ahead or getting worried about what might happen, and just being, some people call it just being with what is sort of
mm,
a popular phrase. So I've been learning to do that instead of worrying about what might happen. And
hmm.
one thing I found with meditation is that no matter how much like I worry about something or have anxiety, it most of the time it never really pans out like as I'm fearful it might be. And that's
Right.
meditation has really shown me a lot of that, to say, oh, look, I have these worries of these hypothetical things that might occur in the future, but then the future comes and I was like, what was I worrying about? That was not helpful to me. And then I've sort of like learned to deal with that and just live more in the present.
Mhm. One thing I really enjoy about your book is how you weave in explaining all the different things that you've done and tried, like, all the different therapists that you've seen, also the different medications that you've been on and then adjusted and been open to changing all of that to get it working well.
Mhm.
And the creativity and different modalities like EMDR, you mentioned at a different point and things like that. Um, I'm curious if I think sometimes people think of one thing, they're like, oh, I'm going to try this and that's going to cure me or something, or it's going to fix it, or I'm going to take medication and it will just make it better and I'll be fine, but I won't do medication and I'll just meditate and I'll be fine. Do you have any thoughts on that sort of thing?
Yeah. So for me, medication was sort of the jumping off point because my condition was pretty serious, and it
Mm-hmm.
actually took me a while before I even got that treating me as much as it could.
Mm-hmm.
But as I furthered down, I started to notice that medication is really only one piece of a larger puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
It helps with the symptoms and it helps things calm down a little bit, but it's not going to cure me. I have to do that on my own, and I have to seek help when as much as I can. And so I have a small team of experts, on my team, supporting me, and I've sort of like built those people around me, different doctors and therapists and different types of naturopathic doctors and also meditation teachers. So it's really like an all hands on deck approach.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I always just like leave no stone unturned approach and
Mm-hmm.
try to keep going with as many different ways as I can address this. And one thing I've learned very well is that I don't subscribe to uh, a treatment that says this is the only way to do it. So I
Right.
make sure it's integrated. I make sure that everyone's on board with what I'm doing. And when I try not to get sucked into to people who say, well, this is the only way to do it. This is the only way to go about
Mm-hmm.
this, because I know I've learned that there are many, many ways to go about addressing these sorts of challenges. And I
Mm-hmm.
need I need to make sure my whole team is on board of approving what it is I'm doing. So when it came to using like different supplements or something, I cleared them with my psychiatrist. And
Mm-hmm.
even the meditation practices sometimes, you know, with what I have, like some meditation practices didn't even work for me. They made my condition actually a little bit worse. And it wasn't until I got to a different teacher and a different type of more standard or traditional meditation did that begin to work for me as well. So so definitely it's a lot of tuning up and a lot of refining and going through different modalities and just finding what works for me.
And your book at the end has a list of different resources and different communities that you can connect with. So I think that that will be helpful for people too, if they're in this situation. So, do you have any advice to talk about the writing for a moment? Do you have any advice for people who are writing something that is very personal in nature, it, possibly therapeutic in nature? Do you have advice for people that are doing that?
Hmm. I would say just if it feels good, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
If Yeah, so it the writing process is very personal, and one mistake I think I made was that I got so deep into the writing that I forgot about other basic things like a social life. So,
This can
so,
happen.
so I would say I know writers tend to get internalized, and
Right.
it's easy. I got so focused on the book and I was enjoying writing it, but then when the band stopped playing, like I lost a lot of that
Yeah.
socializing aspect. So I would say, even if you're spending a lot of time locked in, not locked, but even if you're spending your time
I hope you
secluded,
weren't locked.
yeah, even if you're
Yeah.
spending a lot of your time secluded, in your writing room or wherever you might be
Mm-hmm.
writing, I would say, make sure you keep friends and family uh,
Mm-hmm.
on your calendars as well, because writing can be a very solitary, lonely type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of like, I think, one mistake I made. And that now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm now that my book is done, I'm like, well, what do I do now? I have a less of a network of people to reach out to share this with me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so so yeah, I think that's one very important piece of advice I would give people is,
Mm,
try to find others you can bounce ideas off, and go and just make sure you have support from friends and people, not just therapists or doctors,
mhm,
definitely
mhm,
friends and family
mhm.
who can be supportive.
That's some very good advice, and it can be for writing and a lot of creative pursuits that we can kind of get sucked into and absorbed by if we aren't mindful of being intentional with being in community too. So that's great advice. I don't think anyone's ever said that on the show, and that's solid advice. Anything else you'd want our listeners to hear today?
I just say, just the recovery process is a long and can be painful at times, and I just want readers to know that it is possible to go on and live, rewarding, fulfilling lives, and
Mhm.
this is entirely possible. And no matter how serious a condition might be at the beginning, when we're just getting that diagnosis, it can be crushing. I remember, I had I had a diagnosis originally of schizophrenia, which turned out to be changed a little bit later. And I remember when I got the diagnosis, I just felt like very, very alone
Mm,
and isolated, and I didn't know where to turn. And I was in college, and most of my friends were partying types, and not really understanding like of what it was I was going through.
right.
And I can remember times I would just be like lying on the couch, just vegetating in front of Animal Planet, which the
Yeah,
reason I remember that now, it was
right.
just like I was up at like 4 in the morning, just like zonked out and like watching these shows. And I
Mm,
remember just feeling very alone at the time. And
yeah.
I would suggest to people, reach out to others, preferably people who have a positive influence. Definitely not people
Hmm.
who party a lot, people who are more stable,
Hmm.
who can offer insight. And as I said, just like leave no stone unturned, and keep going forward. And just understand that hope is there. It is possible to move through this, and just keep searching for new different treatments, until you find what works for you. I
Hmm.
remember when I first came to Connecticut, I tried probably 6 or 7 doctors, and it was very, very difficult to find the right treatment, at least on the medication side. And only until like a few years ago was I able to get what I needed. So if something's not working, definitely search for something else.
Hmm. And not give up because
Right. Yeah.
you didn't give up. You kept following through until you found something that would work for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the
Yes.
time today, Neil. It's great to
Yeah.
talk with you.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been great working with you. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
You too.